The metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform, attracting developers, designers, marketers, social networks, and loads of investments. And sure, there's a lot to explore in this space, but there's also lots of substance, insight, development, and exciting trends. Curated by two metaverse futurists, Adi and Tazar, this podcast series brings on Web3 specialists from around the globe who break down the biggest developments and bring on the most interesting insights for our collective future. You will now be entering a metaverse experience. Welcome to the Metacast.
Welcome everyone to the Metacast with Adi and Tazar, episode 3. With another episode, we have more insights, more conversations, and more of the metaverse stuff. Of course, it's growing, it's coming up really well, and there's so much to add on to our community. So we brought these podcasts together for you to enjoy and, get insight as to what's coming up in the metaverse, what's going around in Web3, and there's abundance of information, and that's why we create conversations like these. And with this episode, we have Jérôme Dewavrin from London. And of course, he is the CEO of Atom Stars. Jérôme, hi, and welcome to the Metacast.
Hey, Jim. Hey.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Jérôme, you are the CEO of Atom Stars, which creates opportunities for Metaverse-As-A-Service. How would you like to describe, elaborate more on that? Could you share that with us, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's just that right now the brands have only one option if they want to experience the metaverse, to offer a new way to engage their users, right? Their fans or their followers. They mostly offer some experience in a third-party metaverse, right? Like a big platform that exists that looks like something maybe with basic graphics or with an audience of crypto investors or kids in multiplayer games, but they don't really have a tailored solution for their audience with good quality of graphics at the moment. So that's what we offer. We really offer a solution for brands to have their own metaverse, branded metaverse, with very high-end quality and a positive experience for their users.
Wow. I mean, Tessa, that's what a lot of us are experiencing, and we are also waiting for it. It's an ideal opportunity. Of course, we're seeing so many advances in metaverse fields, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a better user experience in terms of graphics and how the whole setup is. What do you think?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it's a big thing, and of course, it's so exciting to hear that.
I think the spectrum of what the metaverse could offer is humongous, and we'll touch up on it later on the concept of what Metaverse-As-A-Service is. But I definitely feel brands are starting to want to experiment in these areas, and companies like your startup are perfect to sort of like mingle and experiment in these areas. So yeah, it's definitely exciting to hear.
Thank you.
Perfect. So, Jérôme, we want to start off with the questions.
Yeah.
Tada, you want to take that on?
Yeah. So, Jérôme, I just want to talk about the ethics about the metaverse. I want to bring I don't know if you watched the TV series called The Truman Show. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So the concept of the movie is essentially relevant. I think it's quite relevant to the metaverse.
Yeah.
All the interactions were shown to one person. Everything was designed in a way to leave an impression, leave the person with a set of desires that fit other people's interests, and not, in this case, Truman. I think the metaverse will have huge amounts of data and information that people and companies can sort of draw inferences from, and to advertise and to convince you of things. The possibilities, I think, are quite high that people may abuse these emerging technologies in a way that suits their needs and not the needs of others. Jérôme, how can we prevent a technocracy and ensure these ecosystems are constructed with trust and a solid ethical foundation in mind?
Yeah. I think it's one of the critical questions for Well, ethics is clearly the risk of around the privacy, around the use of your data in a bad way, right? So the problem is that right now it's a bit of the far west, right? So wild west right now. Um, there is no like international standards at the moment about how to moderate, how to use your data, and that's why it's never too early to talk about ethics. And I think at the moment the best solution to solve these problems is to talk about it and to put on the table, you know, the risks and the dangers. Um, my take on it also is that the companies that will not have ethical behaviors will pay the price for it, because it's not like 20 years ago. Right now, there is a huge awareness from the end users, right, who don't agree to give their data to the big tech. And so, if you as a brand you want to have a positive to offer a positive experience as a company, as a corporate, you have to be much more responsible than in the past. So I think it's a combination of talking about it, us our role as a company that helps to build is to talk about it and to offer the tools to ensure good quality of moderation, good quality of data utilization, but with a lot of discussion around how to do it in an ethical way. So yeah, it's a balance between talking about it, but also anticipating the fact that if you don't behave well, it will backfire.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
a very, very good point because, as you rightly said, Jerome, there's not been much conversations around these things within Web2 constructs, because I think it was more of engagement and information sharing from Web 1 and Web 2. But now, once we're progressing to Web 3, it's more about ownership and governance, and that's where when we're interacting with people and within environments, we there was this thing that we always used to emphasize on in marketing and branding as well, which is called brand safe environments,
Mm.
and that's extremely important to
Yeah.
even increase brand loyalty. With uh, and that really ensures consumer engagement behaviors, because if you're aware of ethics and you're actually a part of the whole circle of an ethical environment, that's really beneficial for brands within the space that the consumers are
Mm.
in. Wow, I mean, that's I think you
Mm.
guys rightly mentioned, it's one
Yeah.
thing that's supposed to be there within conversations and within communities at this point
Mm.
of time while the metaverse is
Yeah,
Jerome,
being built.
and to be honest, I'm
consider,
surprised
yeah,
that there are not more conversations about that. And yeah, there is a lot of excitement about the technical potential of it and the decentralization as a well, you know, that's also the concept of decentralization. Is this idea that no one owns the metaverse. Well, the reality is that some want to own it, and that some
hmm
players have more influence, and that's why I think it's really, in the end, necessary to talk about it and to put another under the spotlight the real dangers of it.
Absolutely.
how important is it then, Jerome, for the metaverse to be open and interoperable? Looking
Mm.
down 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think it's similar to web normal, web 1 and 2. It's like
Mhm.
the there is this question of freedom, and of course, the more you have centralization, the potentially the more you have some bias around it. So whether it's influence or um, the possibility to um, have an impact. For example, when we think of what happened with the social networks and the impact on the elections, for example, sometimes it was questionable, whether it was a positive impact or not. And the fact to have a decentralization might be positive in that sense. But then the reality, I think, is you will always have some big big players that have an influence and that have more leverage, whether it's through their own network effect, with their own blockchain, with their own set of partners. So it's difficult to imagine a Web3 where it's totally decentralized fully. I think it's kind of a utopia. I think the reality will be a bit in between.
That is something I could
That's
absolutely
well
relate
put.
with. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Jerome, just to carry on with the same conversation within the realm of things, what do you think the people who are building the metaverse should keep in mind? And again, what are the key questions do you think they should have in mind, when they're going through such processes and being
Mm,
involved with the metaverse?
yeah. Well, I think as pioneers, they should also have some in mind that they have a responsibility, right? Um, so it's important to think of the risk, as we said, of course, but also to think of their end users, right? Some players just want to tick the box, right? Of I'm in the metaverse, I did this or I did that, and in my opinion, they should think mostly about what is the value they bring for their end user, right? Is it fun? Is it a good experience? Do they bring cultural content? Do we learn something? Do we engage with people? Um, do we make new connections? So all these questions are, I think, quite critical. And sometimes, to be honest, I feel it's as there is this big hype right now. I feel the deeper questions are sometimes overlooked.
That's true. That's absolutely
W-
right.
Jerome, do you think the metaverse, different stakeholders, whether that's government, whether that's this civil servants, do you think everyone has to collectively get together to make sure the metaverse is in an environment that's ensures ethical principles are followed throughout, rather than big corporations?
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's always a big question of like regulation. I do believe, yes, we need to regulate for sure. Um, I think I mean, most of the regulations of the web, I think, are positive in the end, right? Otherwise, you would have
Yeah.
more abuse, more excess, etc. Um, so then it takes time. I think the communication on it and on the risks is also at least as important, because when it comes from the end consumer that is requesting change of behavior from corporates, the corporates follow, right? They don't want to they don't want to do something that doesn't appeal to their audience. So I think that's the most powerful tool. But yes, regulation are necessary and will be beneficial for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it is something that's supposed to be there, and it will be coming in, of course, as more users get onboarded. And when we talk
Mm.
about ethics, coming back to the same point,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
supposed to be within the same loop. Um, Jerome, I wanted to know, like, in terms of how we see brands, for example, you talk about a brand called XYZ. Um,
Mm.
what do they need to, what do they need to do as a company? What is the mindset that it's supposed to have?
Mm.
They're considering metaverse as a service, and
Yeah.
when of course this is a really amazing term to understand, and a lot of people would want to know about this. Of course, you're already
Mm.
engaged in it. What do you think the mindset of a company should be when they're probably
Mm.
engaging in something like this?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to give first, right, to their audience. I think it's not to just push some products or do some kind of advertising without calling it advertising. I think it's giving first a positive experience, whether it's content, cultural content, to educate some educational content, or just a fun experience that mm, enables people to connect around similar passion, for example. And the outcome of it is, of course, a positive reinforcement of the brand. But it's in my mind, it should be the outcome, not the input. Um, and also the other thing they should have in mind is ethics, as we said earlier. When I think of ethics, it's not only about the data, the use of data. Of course, that's one big part of it, but it's also um, the risk around metaverse in general and video games in general, right? It's like we don't really want the next generation to spend all their days with a headset and addicted to games. I don't think it's the future we want for humanity. So in my mind, it's more thinking of these things. Uh, what do we provide? Is it positive? Does it have a positive impact on the person's life? And that's the kind of questions for me that in the long term will pay back even for brands.
That's absolutely right. Because,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of questions around with the metaverse supplementing normal life. Of course, there are this is another community of users which feel that they have different notions about metaverse, which might not be really good to people who are working on it. But it's just
Mhm.
like I think it's as you rightly said, metaverse should be as a concept, as a phenomenon, as an opportunity, should be used as a complementing element to
Yeah.
life, where we bring in things like blended reality and things that really solve for humanity and for
Exactly.
human problems and how we're dealing with welfare, with healthcare, and with a lot of other things in terms of Internet of Things being really helpful
Yeah.
in the industries. So
Yeah.
yeah, and of course, Azure My IoT from Microsoft was a complete example that worked for so many brands today, and it's just, of course, it's progressing from there. Taza, what do you think about that?
I do think I agree with what you just mentioned, Adi, that the metaverse is an extension to our reality, but not the ultimate final reality, as everyone likes to think of a dystopian world that the metaverse could eventually become. I do believe that it'll disrupt all industries for good, and let's hope that is more good than bad. But I do believe that it will have a positive impact in a lot of different areas. Um,
Yeah, I think we shouldn't
yeah,
be
that's
naive
what.
about the fact that it can also have some side effects. I mean, if let's say even for kids, if parents don't are not responsible, sometimes we see the parents that are not responsible even with the smartphones. So you can imagine that there might be some side effects or just people spending way too much time, isolated, and so that's clearly a potential side effect. Also, the fact that by design, some builders of the metaverse might be tempted to create um, addictive, software, just like we have in the social networks where people are addicted because they have endorphin boost when they see the likes by their friends, right? And so they always want to come back. So we could have the same endorphin boost in the metaverse where okay you get to see your friends and you get to have fun and so it's all the question of to what extent are we creating something that is isolating people from the real world, right? So I think these are serious questions.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this,
agree.
as you rightly mentioned, the there's this thing which there was a conversation that was really intriguing, which I heard, and of course we discussed in the previous session as well, that the next set of Oculus headset are going to have eye tracking and face tracking at the same time.
Mm.
And if you see elements of neuromarketing, which includes eye tracking, a very new study, which is of course when I was at King's, I studied neuromarketing as a subject, and what I was exposed to in terms of what we could do in terms of manipulating behaviors and priming individuals. There's a lot of question around free will. That do you
Mm.
even have free will? And of course, the metaverse has that technology which really
Yeah,
guides you and primes you into something that you might not even know it has done is a part of your already. And we have seen brands. I mean, I would not want to not would not want to name them in a bad way, but Coca-Cola has been really investing in neuromarketing, and they've done it exceptionally well in those cases. So yeah, I mean, if it's used in a way which creates brand safe environments, it's a win. But yeah, when it comes to ethics, there's always a question that will remain in the minds of the consumers or the brands themselves when they're creating campaigns for and even metaverse environments for such people.
Yeah,
yeah,
but I think the newer generation are not naive in the sense that yeah, I just gave I was moderator for a team of students of computer science students who were building projects in the around metaverse, and most of them said we don't want to spend our lives behind a headset of for the metaverse, and we want to be in the real life connected, and maybe we will use the metaverse once in a while, but most of them were not how can I say fascinated or completely attracted, and they were 20 years old, right? Most of them. So I think it's really a tool, a complement, as we said, and with a really possibility to create fun entertainment, as well as very useful for education, for cultural visits, socializing with friends, and it's in that sense it's very positive. And the question really in my mind is if people are aware of the dangers, there will be some kind of self self-regulation. The problem is more for the minorities of people who might not have the either kids who might not be moderated by their parents enough, or even grown-ups who might just fall into addictions. So to that, at this stage, it's a bit tricky to have a solution.
it's
Yeah,
quite similar to
absolutely.
what we're experiencing with Web2 at the moment, with kids addicted to gaming
Yeah,
platforms. It's very difficult to regulate it when it doesn't come from the parents in this case.
Mm.
I
that's
do
true.
think the Web3 will have similar problems to deal with, and hopefully there are solutions companies that are working towards building that that
Mm.
could that sort of deals in this part. I think, yeah,
Jerome, I
Yeah.
wanted to know your opinion on something. Of course, when you said there's always a risk of ethics. There have been situations where if you see data from Statista and studies within the UK and the US where people were asked if they want to engage with brands in the metaverse, we've usually seen that there has been negligence on a large scale, and of course there's a niche that accepts it and there's wanting to explore it. Um, there's studies from various companies that was associated with Statista that say that a lot of people don't know about the metaverse. That's why they can't really make a
Mm.
judgment. When you change the question, and this is for something which I experienced while writing my dissertation at King's as well. If you change the question from a term called metaverse to gamification, and
Yeah.
if you change the question and say, would you like to with the brand in a gamified activity, and you remove the word called metaverse from there. Do you think that that has a difference in the consumer's mind because they know gaming more than they know metaverse?
Yeah. I think you're right. Most people can picture what it is when they think of gaming. And what I saw some studies where most users were happy to have some kind of brand insertion in a gamified environment, and especially as long as it's not disrupting your experience. I think we are just tired of the type of advertising we see on websites, right? Or when you have or you're watching a video stream and you're just interrupted and you have to go through the entire advert. It's just so annoying. So people are tired of it, and but I think if you experience something and you have uh, some insertion that is more embedded to the environment, it's more accepted, I guess. Especially if if the brand offers something, if the brand gives something positive.
That's absolute. That's what we even. I that's what I saw with papers that I read when I was writing my dissertation. That I was seeing a change in a conversation. I think the way people were being primed with the term metaverse and how they have been now being primed without the word metaverse, but still being in the metaverse because there's social
Mm.
interaction, there's immersion, and there's achievement at the same time, which are the key features of gamification and metaverse together.
Yes.
It's just that they are there, but they still say that they don't understand it, and they still have the intent. So I think there's the way where the communication has a gap, and
Yeah.
when you make that happen with the same route, then they will eventually accept the metaverse in the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
a mystery.
absolutely. I think there is a big the term metaverse is scaring a lot of people for right reasons, also, as we said. And also there is some kind of confusion between gaming and what is the metaverse exactly. So my definition is more that it's something that is an experience, a shared experience, shared gamified experience, right? A social place in virtual place where you hang out with other people or do more serious stuff. Um, but the reality is that the biggest representation of it today for me is teenagers in video games right now. That represents about 100 million people every day that meet in these big games. And you have a few million, 2 or 3 million, I think, at the moment, um, that are on the blockchain virtual world, which is really a small minority when you think of it. So yeah, the reality is that gaming, I think, is really what takes the lion's share at the moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
And
it definitely will lead the growth for the metaverse in the coming years. You have to sort of think of these kids between the ages of 10 to 13 playing these games. 10 years from now, they'll have disposable income, and for them to purchase digital assets, it's becomes native to them. It's an intuitive
Yeah,
thing for them, and that's what we're going to witness, I think, a few years down the line.
yeah,
for sure.
100%. I mean, I think we have to imagine these teenagers when they were during COVID stuck at home, and they had no escape, right? So the only option to exist socially outside of their home was to hang out in games, right? So I think
Yeah.
that explains also why it's a recent huge boost, right?
That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. The pivot has come in, and of course, it's bringing in so many more opportunities for brands, communities, people alike. Jerome, I wanted to understand. Of course, you have been in this space for a while now, and you've, of course, inspired so many people, including us today. We
Yeah.
are so happy and so energized to speak to you about this.
Thank
And
you.
of course, we're feeling really well. We're feeling really good about this because I think the concept that you've spoken about today are really important to know, not just for for two people like us, but for entire communities, entire industries which who are involved within this space. And these conversations do happen, but they don't go in detail. That's why we're trying to come up with sessions like these where we speak about these and in detail. Jerome, I wanted to know your background, and how your journey has been to be at this place where a lot of us are now exploring metaverse as a service. We would love to know from you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just started in the as a management consultant. I did a lot of projects around go-to-market of tech products, including software for enterprise and software as a service. And I joined forces last year with my brother Tanguy, who has been in the metaverse for many, many years. Actually, he worked on the first metaverse in the late 90s, then built his own studio to produce for Sony, for Sony's first metaverse called PlayStation Home. And then more recently, he launched a metaverse on PlayStation called Atom Universe, which was downloaded 2 million times. So combining my background in software and software as a service with Tonguy's background in the metaverse, of course, creates metaverse as a service quite naturally. And so I feel really honored and passionate to be able to play a role in defining this new industry, and especially to try to be part of those who try to push a bit the boundaries of the questions around ethics and the meaning behind and the quality of the products that we build for brands, whether it's visual quality or the quality of the experience.
Experience, indeed it is. Jerome, we wanted to also understand, of course, you have had an excellent journey as an entrepreneur as well. What would you advise youngsters like us, because we're really young, and of course we're just moving to the metaverse, exploring, and of course building our identities at the same time. Honestly, I have seen myself within universities like UCL, King's Imperial, in London itself, that all the major events and the entrepreneurship events, including the Mayor of London's fund, had a lot of concepts this year, which spoke about NFTs, NFT platforms, spoke about sustainability in the metaverse, and they were really emphasizing on a lot of new topics. What is your message to such people? And how would you what do you want to know, what them to know, honestly, from your perspective, from your experience?
Well, I can talk from entrepreneurship standpoint in general, and because I think I shared a bit about what I think is important for the next generation in terms of tech and the questions we have to ask ourselves. But maybe I did a lot of mistakes in entrepreneurship, and it's a lot of learnings as well. So I think one of the key questions you have to ask yourself when you start a new company is really, am I solving a real need, or is it just an idea that I have and that I push because I think it's cool, because of course it's my idea, so it's cool, and to what extent am I solving a painful problem, right? Is it like some kind of problem that is not really that bad, so my clients won't have an urge to pay for it, and then it's going to be a very painful journey as an entrepreneur, because I will always have to convince everyone, and especially try to push my clients to buy. Or is it a really painful problem that I'm solving, so the clients will be queuing to access my solution? and then I'm gonna have a much easier journey as an entrepreneur. So there is a lot at stake with this question, because if you don't get it right, you really can have a lot of years, of your life used in on solving a problem that doesn't exist.
That's absolutely right, and I think that resonates with what you are offering. With Metaverse as a service, it's something that intrigued both of us when we initially had a conversation with you. But I think it's something that really brings on, because as of if I were to speak in a real tone of sense, in 2022 we're still experiencing the really initial segment of what is a metaverse experience, and we would say that of course a lot of people who are already involved with this are looking for some form of innovation and involvement that makes these experiences better. And I think that as far as how you've explained it to us, we're really looking forward to this. I think it's something that we're really excited about. And yeah,
I was gonna
please go
say
ahead.
I listened to a podcast from YC Combinator a few weeks ago, and one of the key things they said was, live in the future, build something now, and anticipate problems. Which I think is quite interesting to think about, given the fact the metaverse is going to disrupt a lot of different areas and a lot of different industries. And another thing they said was the best startups are those that the startup founders have spent decades in that particular industry and have found problems that they face on a daily basis. I'm just wondering, Jerome, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. For the problems we solve, I think on my end, I understand the tech part of it and the software part, and the problems that companies have in the as a service part of it. So I have a good understanding, having spent years with these companies that are tired of just investing in software, then they have to throw it away. And when the software as a service, as a solution, are able to have much better control of your costs, and it's always improving, right? Self-improving in a sense. And so that's what I would say from my personal experience I can bring to the company, this business understanding of tech products, while my brother has spent, as I said, decades in the gaming industry, and has spent so much time in the metaverse industry. I think he's really the secret sauce of the company is our understanding of what it means in terms of experience for the end users, like the game experience, the metaverse, the virtual world experience really means, because you cannot improvise, on how to manage in all the components of how to run a metaverse. It's really difficult to build overnight, right? To manage users, to manage the moderation, how to organize the moderation. For example, we have guides that are responsible to moderate in each world. You need to come up with analytics. If you're a brand, you need to know how many users you have. You need a marketing funnel, how much time the user spent, etc. You need to manage an avatar system. You need to upgrade your world all the time, provide games. You need to set up an infrastructure, set up the hosting, etc. So all these things, come, I think, as you said, from the experience of combined experiences. So hopefully we are on the right track. So far, we've got really happy customers. So we hope it will continue like this.
It shall continue indeed.
Awesome.
And our best wishes, Jerome. Of course, you have shared with us so much information and insight today. I think we
Well,
have a
it's a
lot of
pleasure.
takeaways from this session itself. And thank you so much for joining with us. Of course, we'd love
you,
to have
Jerome.
you for more sessions on
In the future,
the Metacast with your Oculus headset on as well, so that you can have coffee with us here.
Perhaps, yeah.
But yeah,
I will have
we
less wrinkles of being tired. It will be less obvious, and
yeah.
it'll be better for everyone.
That's awesome, man. But thank you so much, Jerome, for joining with us
No,
today. Of course,
appreciate it, Jerome.
and guys, just want to let you know, Jerome is on LinkedIn as well. I'll be sharing the LinkedIn account link with you all from the session itself. So please follow him and please connect with him on LinkedIn, because there's so much content that's flowing around, guys. There's so much about the metaverse that's being spoken about, and we all need to know, because this is real stuff, and this is amazing information out there. And once again, Jerome, could thank you enough for this session with us. Guys, we'll be back with the Metacast next week with another session. And this is me, Addy, and with your host, Taza, as well. Thank you so much, Jerome. Guys, we'll be back with another session the next week. Sessions are available on Spotify as well, if you're willing to listen on audio. See you around next week, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Cheers, everyone.